cyberpunk uncensored.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cybersmily, aka Will. This is the Tales from the Forlorn Dopes. With me is Derek. Derek, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Derek, also known as Wisdom. I run Datafortress2020.
And I run Cybersmily's Datafort. We're two old school cyberpunk players, right?
It doesn't get much older.
So with this show, we're kind of going to give our kind of feedback and talk about various things around Cyberpunk 2020, Red, whatever. For this episode, we're actually going to be talking about the game Cyberpunk 2077. And because we're we're new at this, so please, if you're in Twitch and you can't understand or hear either of us, please let us know, and I'll try to adjust the volumes so we come in loud and clear. So I think going forward, the plan is this is probably going to be a few episodes of going over reviews of Cyberpunk 2077. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the nice to haves from the perspective of some old school players. So to kick off my system, I did a couple playthroughs so far. My system, and I gotta call up my data. So I'm kind of running on a peak system. I actually, when the trailer first came out back in 2013, I actually started saving money towards this system and kind of bypassed any type of upgrades I wanted to do to my computer. So I'm running on a AMD Ryzen 7 3800X with 8 cores and 16 logical. Yeah. 32 gigs of RAM, GeForce RTX 3080 with a 1 terabyte solid state.
I am playing on a launch edition PlayStation 4.
So
It doesn't get any simpler than that. I am a console gamer.
So I think our views are definitely going to be varied when it comes to certain aspects of the game, which is a good thing, right? I mean,
we want to cover all the bases.
Exactly. So I think we can start off with, and again, what I'm doing in the background is kind of playing character creation as well as the initial mission, which is going to kind of be playing on the video for us. So let's break it down into character creation. What's your feedback on that, Derek?
I enjoy character creation. It doesn't matter what game I'm playing. Character creation is one of my favorite aspects of it. Not that I take full advantage of it. Every video game I've played that's allowed character creation since Saints Row 2, I have basically tried to recreate my cyberpunk nomad Swift. So they all tend to look the same. But getting them to that point, and of course creating other characters, is one of my favorite aspects. And Cyberpunk, it does an adequate job. I mean, it all feels a little bit wasted because of the lock to third person perspective, except for like a couple of cutscenes. And of course photo mode. But yeah, I enjoy character creation in this game. The genitalia editor is a little bit weird for me because it has zero relevance to the game. Like, there is not a single point in the game where it matters in the slightest.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even run around naked anymore because after like the first week, they put shorts on you when you're running around in the street. You'll go to your inventory and you'll be naked, but then you look down and you're wearing shorts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a little overboard, but then, I definitely can understand that some of the community would like that. Um, I
If,
don't
like
think
I
there's a
said, if it
big,
mattered,
yeah.
I wouldn't have had any problem with it. I still don't have a problem with it. It just seems kind of redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I could have cared less whether or not they had it
Yeah.
or not. I like some of the customization you got into, building out the face. I think there was probably some lacking areas, like I think
Yeah.
for like tattoos, I think was very limited.
My only real complaint about the cyberpunk character customization is you can't like give yourself cybernetic arms or cybernetic legs or like half your face do the classic cliche like half your face is cyber or anything like that. You can't. There's nothing. You
Yeah,
cannot give yourself cybernetics at all.
yeah,
Like
you just have the cyber
visually.
eyes and kind of that wiring in your face, which to me I
Yeah, and
think was
that's it.
yeah. Yeah,
You automatically get cyber arms as the game progresses, but yeah, it's kind of disappointing.
yep.
I would have really liked like one chromed out cyber arm. That's just me.
Yeah. And again,
Hello?
there's
Oh,
hello.
okay.
I can still hear you.
All right.
And again, I think some of the pushback of this game kind of was rushed. Right, might have been an influence, right, on exactly what was getting done. So
There are, yeah, go ahead.
who knows?
There are, it's pretty obvious. Like, you can, I'm not bad mouthing the game at all. I love this game. Obvious at certain points where things were either changed like halfway through or added out of nowhere or just yeah in order to make it into the game that they wanted to become, and it really seems like it happened after they brought Keanu Reeves aboard.
Yeah, I think when they announced Keanu, I think they had to rush and change and their plans on what they were going to produce.
Yeah, like the whole storyline of the game seems to have changed, and
Yep.
there are remnants of what was there originally in the game and what it was going to be, because characters will say something that doesn't reference anything that you've experienced,
Right.
as if it was something you had experienced or were going to.
Yep. So getting to like the actual character with the stats and the skills. So it seems like they only took half of the stats, and the skills kind of really didn't relate really back to the tabletop game. I think.
Um,
Go ahead.
uh, I'm going to give fair warning right now. Anytime we're going to be talking about the mechanics of this game, I'm going to be complaining,
Okay.
because early on they like repeatedly stated how important it was for them to try and emulate the rules of the game, of the tabletop game, in the video game. And man, they just failed at that completely. Like they didn't even try. What could have been like a really interesting like set of mechanics, like a role playing game, or video game where you know death comes quick and fast and all that. Just I don't know. It kind of feels like a generic shooter.
Right. And I definitely feel like there has to be some artistic license given to the game,
Sure.
on the adaptation of the role playing game. And I agree with you that there could have been, or there is a lot more opportunity, especially to flesh out, all the various skills within the tabletop game, and some of the stats, right? But
Yeah, I mean the stats are what we're. are what started this. That's where we're at in the format. So I mean, just okay. In the tabletop role playing game, there's intelligence, there's reflex, there's movement allowance, there's uh, technical ability, there's body, which is a measure of your strength, and all that, and empathy, and like they just threw all that away and gave us some arbitrary stats, some of which seem to overlap. And I don't know. I don't know what they were going for. It
Yeah.
like I said, it just comes out kind of generic.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, specifically like reflex, right? So reflex in Cyberpunk 2077 is geared towards your handgun, your shooting skill, and your blade skills. All three, and I've done a couple playthroughs of the game. To me, reflex in Cyberpunk 2077 is the dump stat of this game.
Yeah, it really is. Like it's the one stat that yeah, I can live without that one.
Yeah. And again, the priorities of those stats, crafting or tech, basically. Tech is the most important skill in Cyberpunk 2077, in my opinion, right? Because again,
I mean, it's definitely up there because you want to be able to craft that stuff, and
yep.
like that's where you get the good gear. Hell, that's what you have to craft half of the like legendary weapons,
Well,
or iconic whatever.
yeah,
You have to craft the clothing and all that, any of the unique stuff, and that gets like if you don't have an 18 tech or 18 tech, then you can't do that.
yep,
You will never get half of the iconic and unique weapons and
yep.
clothing items in the game.
Yeah, to fill out your wall. The other stat is body. I mean, tech and body you need to play in
Oh, you
these
got to have
missions
body.
because you have
It,
the only way you can get into certain doors is either you have to have a high body or you have to have a high tech. No, it doesn't matter, right? And I think
yeah,
that's where a failure comes in. Is to me, you should have the choice, right, between doing a tech or a body. So if you're
I
trying,
mean,
good,
here's the deal. This game is already so they genericize the mechanics for this game so much that I don't know why they didn't just allow you to like fully max out your character. I don't get the decision there. Like if they were following the actual role playing game or the tabletop game, I could understand. Like you don't want superheroes running around, but in this game, I don't. There's no logical reason why you shouldn't be able to do that.
yeah.
So you can experience everything.
And reading through some of the comics, DEF CON has quite a few. So yeah, I
I need
mean,
to get Twitch.
yeah.
I need to. I very much want to read these comments.
Oh, you'll be able to get to it eventually. But basically, it's about first person shooter, and how the mechanics work there. So I mean, for me, that whole first person versus third person, to me, a first person is always more immersive than a third person. Just because of, I don't know, just how I felt with certain computer games. And especially when you get into shooter games, right? To me, first person trumps third person always. From a
See, I understand that sentiment.
Yep,
I don't agree with it though.
and everyone has their opinions, and I don't mind that, right?
Yeah.
Because so from my experience as a computer gamer, right? I was heavily into World of Warcraft, which is third person all the way. And again, it just has the skill. So to me, third person is all about button pushing, whereas
Mm-hmm.
first person, you have to have a little bit more reflex. and it's kind of more of a I don't know, a skill in a way, versus just smashing buttons. You know.
I'm not really sure I follow the logic there, but for me, the reason first person fails to be immersive for me is my field of vision has three. I'm going to say this wrong, but hopefully the idea will come across. Um, I can move my body, I can move my head, and I can move my eyes independently.
Yep.
And I can't in video games. I can only really move my head and my body, so that keeps it from being immersive to me. The field of vision isn't big enough. Um, like there's no peripheral. I guess I could spend like a shit ton of money and have like three giant TVs around me to give me that sense, but and then there's like VR. I think would change my opinion about that. If I could afford a decent VR system, I'd be all like, yeah, first person rocks. Um, but without being able to like get the quick eye movements back and forth that
Yep.
really give you, like when you're walking around in real life, really give you a full picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't work.
It.
It's too, and even if you turn up your settings all the way, like your sensitivity, like it becomes too twitchy to aim. You get the vision right, but you like it's almost impossible for me to aim like that. I don't have the reflexes,
Right.
and so therefore I'm missing out on a lot of enjoyment from the game.
Yeah. The '90s. I was big into Quake and Doom and all those first-person shooters, Unreal Tournament. So that whole reflex
My
and eye-hand coordination kind of was ingrained to me at an early age. But some.
my first online gaming experience was SOCOM, and SOCOM was third person, and I really enjoyed the third person shooter aspect of it. So yeah, I've always been a console gamer. I'm always going to be a console gamer as long as there are consoles. Uh, I realize that automatically loses me some respect among people, but
Ah,
that's just where I sit.
and I will always be a PC gamer because I cannot
Yeah.
live without the keyboard and the mouse. I tried doing
Oh.
console and I can't get the controllers right. It just turns into me smashing the buttons.
See, I've been playing video games since like my first system was a Pong.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah,
me and
I
the controller are long lost, are
had
bosom buddies.
had an Atari, Commodore 60. What was it?
Atari,
40.
Commodore, and Television,
Activision, yeah, not Activision, Coleco.
ColecoVision.
Yeah,
I
everyone
didn't
had
have a
those.
ColecoVision because it was the exact same thing as an Atari, so there's no point.
Yeah,
But
I stopped doing consoles around Nintendo when the Nintendo first came out. But
wow,
yeah,
that's
that's some history there. But yeah, some of the people in the comments are agreeing with you, Derek, on the third person that the whole character creation is for naught, because as first person you can't see you can't see the beauty that you created, which I
yeah.
kind
I
of
mean, I
agree
want to
with.
see my character doing the cool shit, regardless of what game I'm playing. I want to see my character doing the cool shit that he does. I want to. Plus, first person gives me a migraine.
Yeah, some people do. I
Like it
mean,
just
I remember was I just got the latest version of Quake and I was showing it to my brother and he was sitting next to me and like within 2 minutes he got up and left. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then I heard him puking in the bathroom because he got motion sickness from it, from me playing through it.
yeah. I don't get nauseous. I just my eyes keep trying to catch up to everything my character's body is doing,
Yep.
and yeah, it just creates a massive headache for me.
So DEFCON has a defense of combat. He says, yes, you have a lack of actionable material compared to the actual tabletop games. You are going to get that no matter what you design your video game what your video game does. What it does do
Okay.
right is turn off that pause button of turn based and gives you the psychedelic fever dream of violence that it should be.
Oh yeah, now that I'll agree with. No, if this game had been turn based, oh man, I wouldn't have even bought it. My hatred of turn based combat is never ending.
Yeah,
I
like
just I hate that crap.
like those D&D games like Baldur's Gate. Yeah, I
Dude,
definitely.
I've never been able to finish a Final Fantasy game. Like I've never been able to get like even like I would say even a quarter of a way through any of them. I've only tried playing like 3 of them because I just hate turn-based combat so very much. I don't care how well received the game is. It's not my thing.
Okay. So continuing on with right the character, the leveling and street cred functionality that they introduced. I can see why they did it as a game for a video game purposes. Street
I,
cred, I just don't quite get why they introduced it. I mean, yeah, there's certain things that you can acquire,
yeah,
but I don't know.
I like that they tried to make a mechanic for reputation. However, trying to tie it to like you're not able to buy this gear because your reputation isn't high enough is it's not good. Like that is a bad mechanic. Like what vendor is all like, "Oh, I've heard of you, so you can buy this gun, but I've never heard of you, so you don't get to buy the Fragulator 5000." No.
Right, and I think from like the other thing I think that was a big miss when it came to buying equipment was yeah, you had the stores, but to me, how Street Cred should have worked in the game is you go to one of your fixers, and that fixer should have had gear available. And based upon your Street Cred, I could see the fixer giving you the items, right? Or
I
making
could see
unlocking those tiers of
discounts.
items. Yeah.
Like to the point where if your street cred gets high enough, people just give you shit for free because hey, you're advertising our crap. But I don't see because I mean that's how reputation works in the real world. Like
Yep.
half the rich people out there, they show up in a store and the store falls all over themselves. Try or not a store, but a designer. The designer will fall all over themselves to get them to wear it because it's advertisement for their product.
Yeah.
Um, like Brad Pitt doesn't pay for his fucking tux. Angelina Jolie doesn't pay for her dresses. They drape them in that stuff so everybody else wants to buy them.
Yeah. The one thing I haven't noticed and I during a playthrough was whether or not, and I think it does, whether or not street cred affects your interaction with some of the hostile mobs in the game, right? So if you're walking by a certain ganger, whether or not they're aggressive or not, I don't know if it's dependent upon street cred because I remember starting the game, going past one group of gangers, and they kind of aggroed real quick, and then later in the game when I had more street cred, they kind of ignored me. I mean, they were still an option to fight, but they didn't engage.
Exactly.
And I
And
wasn't.
you would think that, like, even later when you show up and your street cred is through the roof, like some of these gangers would like just look at you and run from you. I don't want
Yep.
to mess with that guy.
Right.
While others would like come out of the woodwork to be all like, I'm going to take down that guy and get my reputation up.
Yeah.
Either way, like it should have had more impact on the game.
Yep. And the other thing I think that was a failure was how they how to get street cred. And one thing that I noticed through my various playthroughs was the only way I could really increase my street cred was by finishing off any opponents that I went into. So if I was playing, trying to play through a non-violent way of playing this game, my street cred would just take forever to go up because in order to
Yeah,
get
it
it,
plummets.
I have to basically kill the guy. which kind of led me into always, okay, the guy's down, go up to his head, bang. Which I don't know if is a
It's
healthy way of approaching life, but
it's weird that non-lethal options in video games are just purely for a player role-playing perspective, because once they go down, they don't get back up. You very rarely see that NPC ever again once you put them down. Now, I will say that in Cyberpunk 2077, if you go through the starting mission, or not the starting mission, but the mission where you raid the Maelstrom warehouse in the meat packing plant or whatever it is.
yeah,
Um,
where you're getting the
like there's a
flathead.
couple of NPCs in there that if you knock out, you do run into them later. So kudos to them for that. That was a nice touch. It's the only time I've ever seen that in a video game.
Yeah, and we'll be getting to like that whole missions and type of fluff. I think because just so the audience is aware, I set out a bunch of different topics about the game, which kind of is very detailed. So I think in one of our future episodes we might get more into that. But yeah, I agree that the one thing that really showed me this as a role playing game was that some events that you take in the beginning of the game can have consequences later in the game. And I know there's been some kind of criticism around, that no matter what you do, it's always going to end the same. From a story point of view, I think that's true. It's always going to kind of end the same, but I think some of the details along the way really got impacted by some of the missions and earlier events that you do during the game.
Yeah, I mean it's not as the endings aren't as varied as people were led to believe during development of the game.
Yep.
Lots and lots of things changed during development of the game.
Yep.
Uh, but I mean, there's still a little bit of variation.
Yeah.
There's still some choices have consequences. It
So
that shit doesn't really. The only time that would ever really matter to me is if I was going to play the game over and over and over again a bunch of times. I don't really do that in video games. I've got 3 playthroughs just so I can go through the 3 different character types. But like Street Kid, Nomad, and
Corpo.
Corpo. But beyond that, I'm not like I don't expect the story to have all that much difference.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. So
yeah,
speaking of that, what did you think about the attempt at the various roles? Right. The street kid, the corpo, the nomad.
I'm honestly, I'm just happy that Nomad was one of the choices because that's my favorite. That's my favorite role. That's my favorite archetype in the game. I've I've run some massive Nomad campaigns. My personal favorite character is a Nomad that I've ever played. Uh, but I think they missed out on a lot of nuance in the game. Um, or there was a lot of potential for what the game could have been,
Right.
and I think they missed out on that. I get that they had budgets and they had all this other stuff they had to worry about. And what I wanted, way back in the early days, I wrote a synopsis of how it would work to, um, like like story wise and mechanics wise, how it would work to have all the roles in the game together.
Yep.
Um, I was really hoping, like I put that on their forum, and I was really hoping somebody would pay attention to it, but they did not.
Yeah, I remember
Basically,
back in
yeah,
2013 when the forum started, CDPR's forums started picking up, and a lot of us old schoolers just coming into those forums and like, hey, you got to include this. what weapons should you include in this game? What other roles you should have, and all of that. And I think there was a lot of input, probably overwhelmed. But I think also the developers and designers probably took it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I mean, it was arrogant of me to think that they'd pay attention to anything I said. I'm just some schmuck in fucking uh, the United States. Like, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, but I don't have any like credentials. There's nothing, no reason why they would pay attention to me.
Well, supposedly they
Although at one
went to your
point,
site, right?
I mean, Mike did send them to my site, and they hit it in such volume that they crashed it completely. But and at one point in the early days of the forum, I suggested that as part of the just side stuff on the game, that they give us the ability to have a character sheet that we could transfer to and print out somewhere, so we could play our online character in our tabletop game. And forever, that was like something that they were going to include. So they did listen to me.
Yep.
Either that, or we just had very similar, like coincidental ideas. I don't know. They never acknowledged it. I don't know why that got dropped. That seemed like it would have been something simple, but
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you that that was one of the other things that they kind of said they were going to do. But again, I think once they started getting into it, I'm wondering if they took
once they eliminated like all the roles and all the stats and changed everything to basically follow the generic RPG like level based everything, it was no longer compatible with the tabletop role playing game.
right. And I think the other thing is when they took it as this is going to be the story of V, I think that's where you
Yeah.
couldn't really follow that same path, right? Of, hey, this is
No,
going to be
you don't want
custom
6
characters.
V's showing up to your game.
Exactly. So again, with the character, they also introduced 3 meta stats. One's called Edge Runner. The other one's You Only Live Once, and then the third one was Down to the Wire. So Edge Runner, I believe, was kind of a percentage towards becoming a legendary person in the game. You Only Live Once, I think, was the relationship between you and Johnny, and Down to the Wire, I assume, had something to do with how quick you did the game. And from the community, I don't think they really understood exactly what that metastat really was for.
Yeah, I still don't know what the heck down to the wire is for. I've got on my playthrough with like 250 hours, I've got it at 40%.
Yeah.
I have no clue what I was doing with that or why.
Yeah. So,
But if it really was like you said, if it was a measure of how fast you were completing the game, that makes sense because I took my time. I'm surprised it's as high as it is.
yeah. So my 4th playthrough, basically what I'm gonna do is just do the main missions. That's it. I'm gonna skip all the side missions, any of the police detachments, unless I have to, right? And see how that affects the gameplay, and that's that. I mean, they're interesting little side things, but I think to me the time they did to create those stats could have been spent in a better place. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it really just seemed like they were different ways of tracking your progress through the game.
Right.
And I don't know why they felt the need to break that up into 3 different stats.
So
Except as maybe a warning, like, hey, you're almost done with this. You might want to chill out.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think from stat wise, the one stat I think really probably should have shined, and I believe I saw this in various forums, is like some type of style or attractiveness, or that style over substance of cyberpunk, right? Where the game mechanic would be depending upon the types of clothing you wear, would influence that stat, and that stat would also act as kind of like how cool is working a little bit, right? It opens up doors and opens up other
In
dialogues for it.
in theory, I get you, but I hate the idea of being forced to wear certain items of clothing just for their stat bonuses. Um, I really, really dislike that mechanic.
Yeah, but like
Uh,
if you think about it in Cyberpunk 2020, right? If you go to a high-end bar and you're dressed in bag lady chic, I mean, as a referee, the bouncers in my game aren't even going to let you through the door, no matter how
right,
much cash you
but I
have in the
mean,
hand.
your style is going to vary depending on your background and the places you hang out.
Yeah,
Like a nomad dressed in leathers and all that shit is going to look out of place in a suit corporate bar uh, in downtown Night City. But if he goes out to like the outskirts of town to the nomad market or whatever, um, he's going to be taken in fairly well. Like they're going to be all like, "Damn, you look badass."
yep,
So unless the only way I can see that mechanic working is basically just the. I hate the fact that I hate that clothing has levels. Oh my god, and weapons have levels. I hate that mechanic. But if you're going to use that mechanic, then the only way that the I guess attractiveness mechanic would work that I could see like getting into is basically the level and cost of the equipment affects your that stat as opposed to just like the specific item of clothing itself. I
yeah,
mean, there could be, yeah, or they could have it vary by locale, I should say.
right. And I think you brought up a good point about like the gear of the game. The one thing that when I first did my playthrough, and I was under the expectation that, okay, this gun is going to do this much damage, you'd get a completely different gun, right, with a completely different name to do more damage.
Mm-hmm.
Versus,
Yeah,
hey, you have the same gun at this level, later on you find the same gun, but it does more damage, kind of really annoying. And also that whole, and I'm seeing it from a WoW perspective, that whole quality, right? Okay, this is trash. This is your greens. This is your purples. This is your, oranges.
yeah.
To me,
I mean,
that almost, it really stung to me because I'm like, oh, you could have been so much better game if he just didn't follow
like
the
that.
trend of all these other silly games with their quality
Yeah,
levels.
it is so far removed from what the tabletop game is about that it feels completely foreign to me. I mean, I hate that mechanic in any game, but I especially hate it in this one because I had so much like personal uh, desire for this game. I've been waiting for this game since 1990.
Yes.
Um, it's such a weird false uh like just completely false sense of accomplishment that you get from these level based weapons and gear.
Yep.
Like you get better guns, but at the same time all the enemies get more tough and harder to kill. So like your level 47 gun is just as hard to kill the Goomba dude that you come across as you was when we were level 12
Yep.
because
And
everything scales.
and Renind in chat brings up a point of the clothing level mechanics instead of body requirements, right? So for clothes, yeah. So with clothes, I could see it affecting reflex like the tabletop game. For level to me, for the level requirement versus the body requirement, there should have been certain guns. Like I think it was it the Destroyer, the light SM or machine gun that you can find. That should have a body requirement to be able to operate and
Yeah,
shoot. Or the Malorian.
I mean the climb on that thing is ridiculous. Yeah,
Um,
the Malorian is disappointing. Like when it's
yes.
in Johnny's hands, it is utterly devastating. But when you finally get a hold of it, like I've got like little bitty handguns that are more powerful than this. Well, what are you giving me?
Yeah, River's revolver is the gun that I chose because that thing can just one shot head kills, compared to the Malorian. And again, I don't know why that failed. Um, and
I'm all about the Archangel. I love the Archangel.
actually, the
It's the same
yeah,
revolver. It's just a more powerful version of it.
not my playthroughs. The Archangel, and usually I get the Archangel in late game because I always forget to play through that very long mission thread.
It's a
Of
yeah.
getting to
It
carry.
takes a bit to get to it.
Because my first playthrough,
I don't want to give away anything.
I well, I think for those who are listening, we are going to give spoilers away. Um,
It's gonna happen.
yeah, it's definitely going to happen. So to me, my first playthrough, I didn't even get to any of the carry missions because I didn't know. I didn't think that was going to happen. Um, so I actually
I mean,
finished
it
the game before.
happens so late in the game
Yeah,
that I don't know. It's a shame that it happens so late in the game because I would have liked to have gotten that stuff out of the way quickly and get my Archangel.
right. And so like I said, the Archangel. I mean, it's a good revolver, but the revolver that River gives me, for some reason, does a hell of a lot more damage. Um, and is like heads above the Archangel.
River's revolver is the one that's like a fully auto revolver, right? Am
Yeah.
I getting that mixed up? Yeah, that I gotta role play the game in my head, and to me, fully auto revolver is just kind of weird. Um, so yeah, it's really just a personal style thing that I love the Archangel so much.
Right.
It's it's my proper nomad sidearm. That's it. I actually get mad that I can't wear a holster and see that thing on my hip.
Right. I'm just checking the time.
Whereas on like my secondary character, who's like a corporate ninja, like I don't care if I see his guns. I want to see this dude's.
Yeah. So your playthroughs. So for my playthroughs, my first playthrough, I was kind of playing a street kid. Um, Again, I didn't do any research prior to the game. I didn't know anything about the game, so I kind of geared myself towards a kind of solo type of character. So when I started investing, at least in the beginning of the game, I started investing mostly in the reflex skills of pistol and assault rifle, and
Yeah,
getting those up. But as the game progressed, I started seeing, oh, tech is kind of an important stat,
it's
and
ridiculously important.
crafting is a very important stat, and then the whole how hacking works. So my first playthrough was kind of like this hodgepodge of just learning everything on it. My second playthrough, I played a corp, and I specifically geared him towards just being a net runner and leveling up all my the quick hacks and the breaching and getting the best programs in the game, and that kind of turned into, hey, this is kind of a walkthrough. Once you get to, I would say, once you get to 20th level and you have, the best net gear as possible, everything just becomes hey, I'm going to hack that camera and then I'm going to kill everything in the building through the cameras. and then walk through the camera,
Yeah,
walk
net
through the
runners can be
place.
ridiculously powerful in this game.
So that's kind of my playthrough. So what kind of playthroughs did you go through?
My first playthrough, the one that I did everything there was to do on, was as the Nomad, like I said earlier. And then I'm playing my second and third playthroughs like pretty much simultaneously. I'll get bored with one and go to the other. I'm playing the Corporate Ninja, and I'm playing a Street Kid Netrunner. And for the second and third playthroughs, I'm really not as concerned with doing all the side stuff. I just am kind of moving them through, seeing what I can do with each of their classes, seeing what the unique dialogue options and all that are, seeing if there's anything that really feels all that different from my Nomad playthrough.
Right. I did notice from my Street Kid to my Corpo, there was maybe a handful of quests that had different dialogue options based upon your role and different outcomes.
Yeah.
And of course, there is the role specific one, and that's another thing.
One role
Yeah,
specific quest for each role.
yeah, and that's kind of a shame that I think they should have had at least half a dozen role specific, because to me or the repeat play would have, I think, would improve, right? Because you would want to.
If you can make it feel, if you can make your follow-up playthroughs feel like a different game, that's incentive to do it. Otherwise, it just kind of like, okay, well, I've seen all this. I know it's coming. I know it's happening.
Yeah. And it's funny, on my first playthrough, I didn't do, so I did most of the cops missions, but I know there was two versions of the cop version. There was a second version that I didn't think was important, so I didn't do them on my first playthrough. Come to find out, they're kind of important. And then through my second playthrough, I kind of specifically avoided all side missions and main missions and just went for those police reports missions. And doing that, I leveled so quickly that the side missions and the main mission became kind of
side
too
missions
easy.
are where it's at.
Yeah.
But yeah, story is what gives you the XP.
So what did you?
The story mission itself just goes by so fast.
Yep. Well, it kind of does and kind of doesn't, because you got to always wait a day for Takamura to get back in contact with you on some of those things.
Except you can just skip time. So
true, but first playthrough, are you really skipping time?
Not really.
Yeah.
But like time goes by so fast. Like by the time I get in the car and travel to the other side of the city, he wants me to come back all the way back there. I'm just like, you bastard.
Yeah, so for your first playthrough, did you use any of the travel points? Or was it all getting in the car and driving to everywhere you need to go to?
The first time I had to go anywhere, I would drive. But after that, because I was doing absolutely everything in the game, yeah, I used travel points.
Yeah, my first playthrough, I just drove everywhere because I love the radio.
I'm hit or miss on the radio. Like some of the stations I absolutely adore, and then some of the stations I'm all like, man, they're just. I'm not a fan of death metal or like really, yeah. So this is not my thing.
So you were more into the Uscrack sound?
I was. I think those chicks are hilarious.
Yeah, when I first heard it, I'm like, what the hell is this stuff? And then, of course, by the 20th hour,
I mean, it grows on you after a while. I mean, you can't escape it. It's hard to be in a bad mood, even when people are shooting at you, when Pump on Sheet is going on in the background. You're just like, man, those chicks are hilarious.
Yeah, that was the other thing I loved about the game was, I start encountering a bunch of gangers, and then like I don't know, midway through I get a call from some, I think it was River, as I'm like, offing these people. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, can you come see me and go to a picnic with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Blam, blam.
Yeah.
It's like,
Um, I did get to hate the fixers. I got to the point where I just hated them
yeah,
because you can't like hang up on them. Like they'll call you when you're in the middle of something, and you'll just have to stop and stand there until it's over. Because if you go any further, like you're gonna screw something up.
yeah,
But
that
they just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
yeah, that was definitely an annoying thing. Versus, hey, why didn't they just send me a text on this?
And I
Like
mean, some of the fixers are really cool. Like the priest guy, he's really cool. The
Audrey.
nomad chick out in the desert, I like her. But then there's El Capitan or whatever, the dude who just hangs out on the bridge. Like, why am I taking jobs from this homeless guy?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like working for Gerald in GTA. Like, dude, you pay like $1 a mission. Why do I work for you?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean, with the limitations of what a computer game could have been, what other things do you think could have been added, right, within a timely manner from the Cyberpunk 2020, or certain aspects, especially centering around character creation and story of a role, right? What other roles do you think they could have introduced?
Um, I think an actual techie role would have been awesome, especially if you gave him like some drones and stuff. Uh, that would have worked really well. Like medtech wouldn't really work. Uh, like I figured out a way to make it work, but with the way the game works now, it wouldn't fit. Um, Cop wouldn't fit because you're doing like the game just requires you to do so much illegal shit. Uh, you'd be playing like the dirtiest cop since
Uh,
well.
I'm sorry. What were the cops doing in game that were so clean?
Oh no, I'm just saying I mean there's a limit to what you can expect from a cop playthrough.
I mean,
I
they're
mean some people are going to want to play the clean cop.
true.
They're going to want to play the honorable guy. They're going to want to be River basically.
Yeah.
River was a good cop,
Well,
which is why
but
yeah.
I think that would go back to the playthrough of doing nonviolence, right? Um,
Well, now they could add the cop if they just changed it and made like a private investigator, but that would require a lot them to add a lot to the game.
right.
As it is, I mean, it's the same problem you ran into with the tabletop game. Uh, Not every character type is going to be suitable for every kind of story the GM wants to tell.
Yep. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, to me, the
Uh,
whole role system that they try to do seemed more like as an economic background, right? You're either super rich, or you're coming from the streets, or you're, the nomads.
Coming from, yeah, you're a nomad.
You're
And that works
basically
for me because,
homeless.
I mean,
So to
like, you
me,
don't actually, there are no, you're not really playing any roles. Everybody in the game is either a solo or a netrunner or some variation of the two.
yep,
Like in the video game, that's it. You can be one or the other or both. But you can't just be a corporate because you can't buy your way out of anything in the game. You can't really negotiate your way out of most of the fights or anything like that. You are there to shoot people and be video gamey.
yep. I'm just wondering how they're going to do the multiplayer um, aspect, and whether or not they're going to learn their lesson here and say, yes, we are going to have different roles, or if it's just going to boil down to everyone's a solo.
I know what I want to see.
Hmm.
I would like to see it. I don't want to see it as much as I love GTA Online. I don't want to see that. I don't want it to be an open world lobby that just devolves into like 12-year-olds coming up and killing people for no other reason than the lols.
Yep.
Um, I would like to see it not as Fallout 76 started, but as Fallout 76 is now, where everybody is cooperative. I would very much like to see that.
Right.
Barring that, I'd like to see it like Saints Row 2, where you get a couple of your friends and you go and play the story through cooperatively. I don't want to see death matches. I don't want to see. I mean, I don't care if there are death matches involved, but I don't want that to be the limit of what it is. I don't want. I don't know why there's an online aspect to games like Tomb Raider
Mm-hmm.
or Uncharted, where you're just death matching with the characters from the game. That doesn't make any sense to me. I want to be able to explore the open world with my friends.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
And I think that's supposedly the rumor from the various data mining they've done on the game is that it's going to be kind of a PVE scenarios, right? In which you pull off a
Yeah.
heist or do some other type of mission co op. But I definitely can see this kind of being a death match of one team on against another team.
Well, I'm sure they'll throw out like maps and stuff, like as separate instances. But I don't want that to be all it is.
Right.
Um, like I said, I want to explore the whole map with my friends. I want to do story type missions and accomplish stuff. I want to have more customization. I want to be able to customize my cars, at least change the color because Jesus, I hate the color yellow. Um, I know that's a weird thing to complain about, but man, all the really cool cars are yellow in the game, and that just bugs the crap out of me.
Right.
Uh, or orange. Um, I want to be able to customize my cars, at least to the point of just being able to paint them. I want to have my own character, which again will look at as close to my Cyberpunk 2020 character as possible. But uh, yeah, that's what I want. Like the GT, if you could somehow cross the GTA online um, with the current Fallout 76 cooperative online, I think that'd be about ideal. A lot of people give GTA a lot of crap. I don't know why. I think one of the best-selling games of all time, so obviously people love it. Uh, but that's neither here nor there. The point is I want to run around in the world of Cyberpunk with my friends. That's all I've wanted from the beginning of time.
Yep.
What
It,
would really be awesome is if I could somehow set it up so we could emulate 2020 in the game, like set up missions and stuff like that.
right.
But that's just wishful thinking.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, I definitely would like to see as a multiplayer game to do missions as teams, right? Like basically how
Yeah,
tabletop is. Having the fixer say, "Hey, I need you to go in and infiltrate this particular
man, wouldn't
facility
that
and
be
get into
cool?
it."
Like being able to play a fixer in the game and set up jobs and have somebody be your med tech and keep people up and moving.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Medtechs could do health and keep people going, and rockers I don't think would be part of the game. I think
I
their
mean,
scope.
sure, they can be part of the game. They can inspire the NPCs to come to your rescue. Like, hey, I'm a big famous rocker guy. I mean, it's all video game silliness at
Yeah,
that point, but
true.
I mean, there's no reason not to include it. There are plenty of NPCs running around who are armed.
Yep. So we're about at the hour mark. I don't know if you want to continue and get into other aspects of CP 2077 or save that for another episode. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we can save that for another episode. Right
Okay.
now, I want to thank Rob Mulligan for hosting this for us and his Cyberpunk Uncensored. We're glad to be a part of the team.
Yep. So
Um,
just everyone go
it
visit
is,
cyberpunkuncensored.com if you don't know about it. He has some great stuff over there.
yeah. And if you're not too busy, check out my friend Will here's site, um, Cybersmily's Datafort, or come visit me at Datafortress2020.
Yeah, definitely check out Derek's site, aka Wisdom. Uh, he has been very inspirational, at least for me, and I'm sure to quite a few other people in the gaming
Right back at you,
community.
pal.
Um, well, you got the fluff, man. I mean, your site is just packed full of fluff, which is always great. I just do the
I,
technical functionality, and
I really like fluff.
I can tell, especially your combat zone article. I mean, I still use that
Yeah.
throughout my games.
Eventually, the plan is to expand that to all the districts of Night City. It's really hard for me to write anymore.
Well, hopefully, eventually that bug will hit you and you'll get there. Um, so
The bug is there. It's the physical pain of sitting down in front of the computer that hurts.
yeah, DEF CON. So it's datafortress2020.com. And then my site is cybersmily.net.
Yep, that's me.
And then uncensored, or cyberpunkuncensored.com. There's also
We are a happy bunch.
Yes, we are. And there's a bunch of other fan sites that are out there. We did an interview with Rob a few months ago where we talked about all the various sites that are out there or used to be out there.
Yeah, support the Cyberpunk 2020 community because sites are disappearing daily.
Yep.
There's not as many left as there used to be at all.
And if you go to Dataforge 2020, he has a link to all the various cyberpunk sites that are currently out there. So check them out.
There's also a link on a separate page to all the sites that ever were and
Yep.
are no longer.
And that list is mammoth. So,
Just so you can get an idea of what was and what is.
yeah. Yeah. All right. So thanks for all the listeners to enjoy our little show. We'll try to schedule the next show. Not sure exactly when, but you'll be hearing from Cyberpunk Uncensored on when that'll be. Thanks, Derek, for hanging out with me, and look forward
Thank
to the
you,
next
Will.
session.
Absolutely.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.